Hello everyone, TLSG here, back again with another daily Marvel Snap video. Today we have the featured location, Warrior Falls, and this location is impactful to say the least. You either play around it, you change it, you shift it with Quake, but the one thing that you can't do is just ignore that it's there, because if you get outplayed in this location, you could pretty easily lose the game, and to the mechanics of it, you can accidentally destroy your own cards. There's just so much with it that for the most part, it's easier to either run something that is a really high roll where you get a lot of power onto the board, or something that will mitigate the location and protect your cards in that location, so something like an armor. And so that is where today's build is going to come from. It's going to be an Electro ramp deck, and I really enjoy Electro ramp decks. Any excuse that I can get to use my Electro variant, I will take. But with this list, we are looking at a couple of win conditions. If we draw into Electro, that's great. We can do a Hobgoblin or a Professor X on 4, into a Leader, Doctor Doom, or Destroyer on 5, into one of the other ones on 6, to give ourselves quite a bit of upside. Maybe we even drop a Shang-Chi if the opportunity presents itself on that last turn. If we destroyed our Electro, then all of a sudden we can do a 5 cost and a 2 cost. We just have a little bit of flexibility with this list. And then if we don't draw into Electro, we have a couple of other play paths. So we can change a negative location with our Scarlet Witch. We can protect a lane with armor, which is going to be great if we don't feel like we have the advantage in Warrior Falls. We have Daredevil, that's going to let us see what they drop on turn 5 so that we can more consistently trigger our Hobgoblin or our Professor X so that we can kind of lock down a location or a lane. We have Rescue, so if we don't get into the Electro path, Rescue on 4 into a Hobgoblin or a Professor X on 5 is going to be really, really hard to compete with. We have our Leader as that last turn kind of buffer play. It's really hard to anticipate the Leader, and you're going to have to use him strategically depending on what matchup you're seeing. But for the most part, Leader is going to be kind of important in being able to secure a last turn win condition. Now, if you're early pool 3 and you've pulled Electro and you've pulled Destroyer, but you don't really have much of the other cards from our original list, you can run this list. It was created by one of the mods in my Discord, Pilk Enjoyer, who used this on his alt account, his free-to-play early pool 3 alt account, to get infinite rank this season. And so it uses the same kind of base premise that if you get Electro, you can do an early Professor X, or maybe you throw a Gamora for a big power push. If that's protected, you can then drop Destroyer. You have Cosmo as another alternative way to allow you to drop your Destroyer as well. And you just have a little bit more flexibility in this version of the list compared to the high roll that we have for our pool 3 account. And so for my pool 2 players, if you have Electro, if you have Destroyer, definitely check this one out. It is going to be pretty strong today. All right, so first up we have Masa. And the first location is Warrior Falls, and we do have our Electro, which I really, really like to see, because we can throw Electro into Warrior Falls, and that's going to be a potential condition to clear the negative downside from Electro of only being able to play 1 card per turn. If 2 power is the lowest power card in this location on turn 3, then we're actually going to have that location cleared of the negative downside. And so we're going to skip turn 1. A lot of times we'll skip turn 2. I do think we're going to go ahead and change Sinister London. We could lean in and get some extra upside. We could do an Electro that's going to allow us to kind of duplicate our upside, but I think we're going to change it with Scarlet Witch. They could have a higher high roll than us. We want to maintain some board space for a potential Leader play at the very end of the game, and so we're just going to go ahead and change that location. Unfortunately, Mindscape is not necessarily what we had in mind, but we are able to kind of play around it a bit. And so we are going to play Electro. That's going to be our lowest power card, but they have Electro that they play into Mindscape instead. Very interesting that they didn't want it to get destroyed. I mean, we'll take it. So we have initiative. If they use a Professor X here, they win this lane. If they use it here, they win this one. I think we're going to go for a Hobgoblin in the sewer system. Then we're either going to look for a Doctor Doom or a Leader play on 5. And then we'll switch hands on 6. And so they did play their 1 card in Mindscape. It could be a Professor X to lock down. No, it's a Jubilee. Interesting. And so their Jubilee is going to pull a Doc Ock, which is also interesting. Oh my gosh. So then there comes Rescue. There comes our Cosmo to stop Doctor Doom's on reveal from triggering, so we can't push power out to the sides. Oh my gosh. Not a fantastic play. So we're going to go ahead and play Leader into the sewer system. If they play a big card into Warrior Falls, then we're going to be able to copy it, and then we can get rid of our Electro. We're gonna switch hands, so the Doc Ock doesn't do them too much good, because now they're not going to get very many resources from us when we swap hands after this turn. And so let's go ahead and play the leader. They will probably play into Mindscape. If I was them, I would play into Mindscape. But if they don't, we're going to be able to copy it with leader, and we don't want them to be able to copy our card, whatever we play, on that final turn. So let's go ahead and throw down the leader. We're waiting for them to play. Ooh, they do play in the left-handed lane, and so they do also play a Dr. Doom, which does give them the lead in Mindscape. Our Electro gets destroyed. Depending on what we can drop, if we can have the highest power card in Warrior Falls, then we'll be able to be the only card remaining after the last turn. We know that we only gave them a Daredevil in return. Ooh, so I kind of like the Magneto play. We know that we only gave them one card. They can only play one card anyways with Electro, and so we're going to be able to do Magneto. That's going to pull their Jubilee and their Electro out of this location, bringing them back down to 15, and then the Jubilee would be what gets destroyed. Magneto, unless they top decked something more than 12 power, Magneto would be the card that would remain in the fight here. Plus we have the buffer of Dr. Doom, so it's not going to get destroyed even if they have something a little bit higher. And then we have the win condition here, so we would win these two lanes, very likely win all three. What a fantastic Mindscape location. So the Doc Ock originally hurt us quite a bit, but we were able to find the upside because of the Mindscape location that Scarlet Witch gave us. All right, next up we have Shadow Rider, and the first location is Dark Dimension, so we could potentially hide our Destroyer there. We could hide a leader play there on 5 if we ramp up with Electro. We just have a little bit of flexibility, and so I do kind of like their hood play into Warrior Falls. We're going to protect it with our armor, and then we do have Electro that will probably play into this third location, allowing us to, on turn 4, drop either a Professor X or a Hobgoblin if we draw into it, but most likely we're going to shoot for a lane lockdown on 4 with our Professor X. So they do a Bucky Barnes into the far right, interestingly enough, and so they're just going to leave the hood. Ooh, and then the Nexus is also interesting. So part of me really wants to do our Electro. That's going to give us an upside. We can look for a Professor X lane lockdown so that we can try to find that win condition. But if we can stop them from destroying their Bucky Barnes, and they threw something like a Venom here whenever we end up stopping it, then I think we can find our win condition anyways. Let's go with the Cosmo play. They have one turn to potentially destroy these cards, and they don't get it. And so this is probably the fake one, I would assume. This is potentially the real one, and so is this one. But that's okay. We don't need anything crazy necessarily here, because we do have Destroyer that we're going to be able to drop on the final turn. Cosmo is going to make sure that this does not trigger. And so now I think we go with the Electro play. That's going to allow us to do a Dr. Doom here, and then a Destroyer on 6, which after this reveals, it'll push the Doombot here and here, allowing us to find our win condition in kind of a hidden way. So let's go ahead and go with this play line. I like this path. I don't like trying to lock one of the lanes down with Professor X. I just don't know that we're going to have enough of a power push to be able to do that. So they use a Yondu. It destroys our leader, but that is perfectly fine. That is okay. We're not worried about needing to do leader. We have our own cards, and we have our own play path that we like. So let's go with the Dr. Doom. We're going to hide it in Dark Dimension. On the last turn, we'll do Destroyer. Cosmo will stop his own reveal from triggering, so he's not going to destroy the rest of our cards. And I think they're going to have a 7, and then maybe just a tiny bit more of a power push here. I just don't think it's going to be enough for them. Maybe they push 12. Maybe they push a death here. And so then they end up pushing 19 power into the Nexus, but we know that that's not going to be enough for them. So they do use Wave. So it does look like a very high likelihood that they do maybe a death and something else this turn, but that's okay. So we have the Destroyer. We have the secret Dr. Doom that's going to push power into these two lanes, which will, of course, double buff this one. Even though it pushes one bot here, the 5 is going to carry over from the Nexus over into the Warrior Falls, and that's going to give us our win condition, I think, regardless of what they drop here. And so let's go ahead and go with the Destroyer play. That's already going to be a huge power push. Ooh, they do a Magneto, but Cosmo makes sure that it can't pull any of our cards over. The only thing that was within range was Electro anyways, but our Dr. Doom then comes in as that last last-ditch effort to push us over the edge. It allows us to win all 3 locations. We are out here stealing cubes today, guys. The Electro ramp feels like where it's at. Let's go ahead and jump over into the next one. All right, next up we have Frozen Pyro, and the first location is Olympia, which helps us draw into the resources that we need. We now have armor, we have Electro, we don't have Professor X just yet, but we have a much higher chance of drawing into it now that we have the additional 2 cards out of our deck. So Monster Island comes in. It does help them more than it helps us because it looks like they're running a Patriot deck list. We're already able to identify that just from their first turn play. I think we tempo drop the armor into the far right lane. We can always go with an Electro on one of the following turns. We have Shang-Chi to take out their monster token here, which might be enough to swing this location in our favor. And then the last location is Warrior Falls, but we already have that one kind of covered and locked down. And so let's go with an Electro ramp into Olympia here. We can do a turn for Professor X if we think that's going to win us this location. And then we kind of look for our alternative win conditions. So maybe we sneak a leader in and that copies a Patriot. Maybe we're just able to steal this lane with a Shang-Chi. We'll take a look at what it looks like is going to be best. Ooh, so they do tempo play their Patriot here. Oof. That one's tough. And it's not going to get destroyed because of our armor. So now we have to wonder, do they drop a token here? If they drop a token here, then it's going to be hard to win this location. But I think we're going to risk it. It's only for 1 cube. This either allows us to easily retreat. We don't have to worry about playing it into the late game, or we can double down here if we win this location. So they do a Mystique to copy the Patriot, which does look like they're running a very high roll version of the Patriot list. Typically, we would have to worry about them doing an Onslaught to elevate this even further on that last turn, but we lock it down. So we have the win condition here. I think we snap into that. I think because of that, we go ahead and snap. Our Electro stays on the board, so we could do something like a leader play, which would copy any cards that they play here and here into a Shang-Chi on the final turn. But we're going to need more than 7 power, which we already have. It's either that or we do a Dr. Doom here and push 5 more power here. But I think I like the leader play a little bit better. Let's do leader. Hope that they play into Monster Island. If not, then I think it's okay as well. Ooh, now we have a secondary target for our Shang-Chi. So we have 15 power here. We have 9 power here. If we destroy this one, it's just 6. I think we have to go Shang-Chi in the left lane. Up until this point, I was thinking Shang-Chi in Monster Island, but I think protecting our upside with Abomination over on the left-hand side is going to be the play. And then even if they drop like a Wasp and a 1-cost card, a Wasp and a Squirrel Girl, then I think we're protected. I think we're covered. And so they snap back into it. Hopefully this Shang-Chi is going to surprise them, and they're not going to anticipate us destroying their big units. So let's go ahead and lock the Shang-Chi in. Comes down to a read. Ultron does. It is outside. Oh no, it's outside of our Shang-Chi range, isn't it? Ultron might be enough to do it for him. We only take out 13 power. Oh, we lose by a massive 1 power deficit here. That one hurts, guys. That one hurts. The Ultron being just outside of Shang-Chi range and hitting us with that sleek variant. Every once in a while we get outplayed. That one we will take. We didn't have a great win condition there. Even if we had dropped our destroyer, maybe our win condition on the last turn instead of leader would have been rescue into a Shang-Chi here. That would have given us a 9 power rescue into this lane. We could have destroyed the monster and it would have been 17 power. We would have had a little bit over 17 power, but of course that was very situational. And we didn't anticipate the Ultron. We should have, but we didn't. All right, so next up we have 9, and in our starting hand we have our armor, we have our Electro, so we're going to be able to ramp with this list, and then we can look for our win condition from there. If we draw into Professor X, we can lock down a lane. If we draw into Destroyer, we can potentially drop a Destroyer. We just have a couple of paths to our win condition. So let's drop armor. I'm just going to go ahead and drop armor into the middle location. Maybe we end up playing Electro here if this is Warrior Falls, to try and let Electro get destroyed eventually, so we open it back up to be able to do multiple cards in a turn. Oscorp Tower is going to switch the location of these cards, and so we actually get one of my favorite play lines with Electro in throwing Electro into Oscorp Tower to then send over their way. and they're only going to be able to play 1 card per turn after that. We will get the upside of the energy. They will get the downside of only being able to play 1 card from the ongoing ability. One of my oh no. They had the storm, which counters our Electro cheese. Oh my gosh. And so we do keep the downside of the Electro. We snapped into it. Unfortunately, that is not going to hold down. And also, unfortunately, we are drawing into a lot of rocks here. We could tempo drop a Shang-Chi, which I think we might do. I think we tempo drop Shang-Chi here. It's not going to hit anything, but I think our Doctor Doom is going to push power here, and then we can try to rely on a leader on the last turn to find our win condition afterwards. And so the Shang-Chi comes down. They do a Juggernaut, which actually pushes our card out of the flooded lane. Unfortunately, that's going to mean that we cap out Central Park relatively early. And then we draw into a third rock for the game. And so we could either do Doctor Doom now, or we could do Leader now and copy whatever they play. I think we do Doctor Doom now. We're going to push power here and here. We'll do Leader on the last turn, but it doesn't leave us very much. Ooh. So the Leader actually wouldn't have, the Leader wouldn't have been great because we would have ended up capping out this location. So now we can do our Leader that's going to copy whatever they drop, unless it's in this middle location. And so that's what we're going to rely on. If they have a White Tiger, they could potentially find the win condition either here or here, but that's a big if. Ooh, so it looks like they didn't have a kind of counter to that last turn, or they didn't have a great last turn play for the threat of our Leader, or maybe an Odin, or whatever that might be, was enough to hold down the game for us. And so let's go ahead and we'll jump over into the next one. All right, so next up we have Sevturian, and the first location is Westview. So that's going to change into a random location on 4. And so they play Hood. If we draw into something like an armor, maybe we play it into Westview to protect it. And then we should leave Warrior Fall for now. And then we look for a chance to kind of steal the location away. And so we do play our armor. It protects this lane. I anticipate that this is the fake one, just in case it gets destroyed. This is the only location that feels like it might have the real Mysterio token in it. And so we do have Hobgoblin for 5. We have a Leader play. I think we're going to do a Cosmo into the far right. We're going to try to counteract their real Mysterio in this lane. And we're going to stop them from being able to do something like a Shang-Chi or something big. And it allows us, if we draw into our Destroyer, it gives us a path to play our Destroyer. Sometimes destruction decks are just going to fall to a Cosmo. They played a Nova. I'm guessing they probably played a Carnage here, and our Cosmo countered it. They weren't able to destroy this lane, which would have meant that the real Mysterio was probably here. But sometimes those games are going to happen. Let's go ahead and jump over into the next one. All right, so next up we have Greyfield. The first location is the Lechugia, so we're probably not going to play into there unless we're dropping Scarlet Witch. Muir Island is our second location, so that's going to be pretty good for us. I think we're going to drop our Daredevil. That will give us some clarity on a clear turn 5 advantage drop. Ooh, why are they shuffling rocks into their deck? They even emoted. They even did an emote back to us, which is so strange. Let's go with the double down on armor. If it happens to go here and here, that's beautiful. We could do a Destroyer without having to worry about it destroying either one of these 2 lanes. And I think it'd give us a pretty good amount of upside. I'm still really confused as to why they dropped the Domino into the Gia. It seems like a bold choice, unless they just had all of the cards they already needed. Oh, and we do get the upside of having our armor go here and here. And they did use a wave, so we're going to be able to drop 1 card no matter what it is. I almost think we go with the Leader play here. That is going to, yes, shuffle cards back into our deck, but I think that's okay. We'll be able to lean in with a double Destroyer on the final turn. If we did Leader here, then we're very likely to cap out our lanes, cap out our locations, and that's not what we want to do. So I think we lean in with 1 Leader play because we know that they're going to be playing a big, impactful card. And so let's go with the Leader play to copy whatever they drop, and then we will kind of see what it looks like. Oh my gosh, we get a Agatha out of it, which is a massive, massive boom here. We're going to be able to see what they drop this turn. We do have 5 energy, so we could do something like a rescue into Sinister London. Maybe we do a Shang-Chi into the left lane to take out their Agatha there. We just have a little bit of flexibility. Ooh, so they drop an arrow. they do an arrow and they have initiative. So that means that arrow is going to go here. It's going to initially pull our cards over. When it duplicates, either here or here, it's going to pull our cards that way as well. And so I think what we're going to do is we're going to do a Cosmo and a Scarlet Witch. It doesn't matter where we play them because it's all dependent on where arrow pushes them. And then we have the last turn Destroyer play to push a lot of power into these locations. It's going to be too inconsistent to do the Shang-Chi because that depends on the 50-50 flip of whether the arrow goes here or here. I think it's going to be safer to split our differences, potentially get a Cosmo into the Gia, which will kind of increase and elevate our upside. And so it does pull them both into mid, which... Wait, no. So because we played our Scarlet Witch here, this second arrow actually didn't pull her back into this lane, which I didn't realize was kind of part of the tech of arrow, was that if one pulls it away, the other one can't pull it back to that same location because it was technically played here, I'm assuming, is why it didn't pull our Scarlet Witch back into the middle location. We're just going to do a Hail Mary with a Destroyer here, hope that they can't push enough power into Muir Island. And then we're just gonna lean in on that fact. So Destroyer will go off here, but our cards here are protected with armor. And so we are going to be able to find the upside just barely. Oh my gosh, we did not... This was the sloppiest win I could imagine. And that's where we're going to go ahead and end the video. I hope that you guys enjoyed it. If you did, make sure to leave it a like and a comment down below. As always, this has been TLSG. Later, guys.